Oi, yo guys, yo guys. It is Old Man G here, back again with another late night podcast. This time it's the United Forum. The United Forum is back. The United Forum is back. I'm joined once again by the lovely at Tom the journalist. Tom, how have you been doing, buddy?
Yeah, not so bad, G. And yeah, I hope yourself you've been, keeping well and stuff. And yeah, I hope everybody who is either joining live or anything is all doing good and everything. Been a bit of a long time and everything, but yeah, always show support, guys. Subscribe, like, and share the stream as always, people.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And guys, obviously, make sure you go and follow Tom over Twitter as well. Now, apologies. First and foremost, apologies. I know I would get my camera out and all the rest of it. So, just been a long day. And sometimes when I go to these late streams, it's just basically just more appropriate for me to just do these streams here. So, but if you do want me on camera, let me know, and I'll show you my expression face. So, but we've got a lot to talk about. We're obviously going to be talking about as this is in the title, the INEOS and their plans and what's been going on, and a brief summary because, like I said, Tom was not been on for a while. So for those who have questions regarding, or want to discuss more about, what INEOS have been doing, the recruitment, the structures, all the rest of it, we're going to have a brief conversation about that and really kind of delve into what INEOS plans are for Manchester United going forward. Then, following that, we're going to be having a brief reaction to United Brentford game, where United go from here. Is Ten Hag the right manager or not? Lisandro Martinez injury, what's going on? What is going to happen to Manchester United season? And then finally, we'll end with a brief discussion on the Premier League title race, who we think or who we want to see to win the Premier League title. But like I said, guys, if you are new to the channel, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and We United X. Follow us on Twitter and We United X. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, and Kick as well. Links are in the description, so make sure that you check us out on all those platforms as well. So I guess first and foremost, and shout out to everyone in the chat as well. Really appreciate it. Rajik, hope you're doing well. Big up, bro. Big up. Matty, well, Matthew, man, that's really appreciated, buddy. Even big up, everyone. Big up, bro. The only thing I want to know is who's replacing Erik in the summer. Well, we're going to talk about that. RSV, man. Big up, RSV in the chat, man. Good to see you as well, bro. Shout out to everyone watching on the other platforms as well. So let's basically, on that, I guess on the subject, like Matt's kind of who's replacing Erik in the summer, let's actually just go straight into, INEOS. INEOS's plans. So obviously, Tom, since we last spoke, basically, Sir Jim won. INEOS is here. He knows what he's doing. So a lot has happened. We've got obviously the recruitments. The rooms of Dan Ashworth, obviously Omar from Man City, etc. So can you just give everyone a brief summary, just from your perspective, as to who INEOS have kind of got in, maybe what their roles are, and what you think the plans of INEOS are for Manchester United in the short term?
Yeah, well, in terms of INEOS, when they've acquired the 25% stake in Manchester United, they wanted to lead a 60 to 90-day review of all of the football operations as a collective. And so they've also been running a financial audit regarding Manchester United in terms of where they can cut costs, they can save money, and effectively they can boost performance and get a better result out of the football club than what they've had in the last couple of years. And in particular, that's been based more towards the structure in the short term, and the end goal in the long term is to have Manchester United back competing at Europe's elite, but also in the Premier League with their rivals. And in terms of the actual structure within Manchester United, as soon as INEOS had walked through the door, they weren't even announced. And the then CEO of Manchester United, Richard Arnold, had already handed his notice in and resigned straight from that point. So INEOS are looking at the overall structure, and they've assessed the key parts within Manchester United and within any football club, which is your CEO, your sporting director, and a technical director or a head of recruitment, who will join everything together along with the recruitment department. And effectively, they've looked at what Manchester United currently have right now, and they say it's not been working. So they replaced Richard Arnold, and they've looked at the options out there within European football. And they looked at Omar Barada's credentials in terms of what he's been a part of, which has been a massive success with Manchester City. Of course, obviously, there is the investigation hanging over Manchester City and everything regarding the alleged financial breaches, for which he will be implicated in if it is proven to be guilty. But based upon the guy that they brought in, he's been a massive contributor to the City football group and how they've managed to recruit players. He's a massive figure within City in terms of how they negotiate player contracts when they bring either in new players or they get rid of them, which I guess is one thing that you can criticise Manchester United for, when they overpay for players or they, overpay in the transfer market to sign players or even just offer them wages or renew players' contracts. So that's one thing that is a massive credential towards. But then it's not even just with Omar Barada. They've looked at the sporting department in terms of the football operations, and they believe that they want to re-galvanise the whole recruitment department, and they want to start from scratch. So they want to bring in who they believe is the best sporting director within the Premier League at this moment in time, and they believe that's Dan Ashworth. And they're not prepared to pay what Newcastle want in terms of compensation. He's currently on a gardening leave period, which is supposed to run out at the end of January 2025, which it would coincide that Manchester United wanting to start in work in the summer, which if they not prepared to pay the compensation package that Newcastle are offering, then it's going to have to be a case of they're going to have to sit and wait. But Manchester United are prepared to wait. They're not being drawn in. INEOS aren't being drawn into any of the bully boy tactic by Newcastle in terms of if you want him to start in the summer, you're going to have to pay what it takes. They're prepared to wait for the guy if needs be, and not fork out a shed load of money that they don't believe is rightful towards Newcastle based upon the time of length that they would have to just wait to get Dan Ashworth in anyway. And further on more towards what they've just done in the last couple of days, where they went directly towards Southampton and they asked for their director of football in Jason Wilcox, who had worked with the Manchester City football group as well. In terms of, he was the head of the academy and the sport, and he was a major factor of a lot of the young players in the City football group. He helped identify a lot of the young players that you see in that Manchester City team today. Phil Foden, for example, Rico Lewis. He was a massive contributor to the development of Jadon Sancho. There were a lot of young players in that City team that he has had a hand in their careers, so to speak, either if they are still at City now or they've gone elsewhere. He's been a massive influence on those young players as they've been brought through the ranks. And it is a hand almost from Omar Barada. And they want to bring in Jason Wilcox. He's actually resigned from Southampton, but he will have to endure a gardening leave period. It's an undisclosed notice period at this moment in time, but it'll probably get disclosed within a couple of days or weeks coming forward when details start emerging about it. But based upon Jason Wilcox himself, I think he's a brilliant identifier of young players. He knows how to work with young players. And again, he's worked under one of the best football structures out there in football in Manchester City. And the only reason why he left Manchester City was he got offered to be the guy, a main sporting role within football at Southampton, for which he's not even been. I don't think he's even been there 9 months, I think, at Southampton. But they've got to try and negotiate a compensation package with Southampton, for which Southampton aren't willing to accept the fee that Manchester United have offered. So he just simply resigned from the role. So effectively what INEOS's plans in the short term is they want to create their own football structure internally at Manchester United, which will make Manchester United save a lot of money, what they've wasted on player contracts, transfer fees. They want to be a lot more smarter in the market. That's why they've brought in negotiators like Omar Barada. And I think even the tactics that they're taking with Dan Ashworth, where they're not just going to pay what it takes to get anybody. And if they believe that he's the right man for them, they're prepared to wait it out and not pay what they believe is ridiculous money. And it's almost the opposite of what Manchester United have done, where, the hand has always been forced and they will pay whatever it takes to get a player or to get, a manager. They'll go over the odds if it means that they get the person. whereas INEOS aren't necessarily being forced into those tactics as we speak right now anyway. But effectively, they want a collective structure and they want to build it up from scratch, but they're prepared to wait to get the right people that they believe are the best in class to take Manchester United forward.
Fair enough. No, appreciate it and giving us that context, Tom. I'm just going to quickly bring up a question. I think that asked feed. Just good evening, everyone, as well. Good evening, Rob. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well, man. And bath time, buddy. Good to see that you're doing well. AD as well in the chat. Thank you very much. Good to see you guys as well. So just a few questions come up, and like I said, this is interactive for you guys, obviously. So so if you have questions, obviously let us know in the chat. So Arsv says, "Big up. I have a question for Tom. Does Joel Glazer still have the ultimate final say on transfers, incoming and outgoing? He could still prioritize shirt seller signings, commercial assets like Rashford, etc."
In terms of Joel Glazer's influence, the Glazer family, from what I know anyway, in terms of the setup that they have in partnership with INEOS, is INEOS have 100% control over the football operations, but the Glazer family, as far as it was known anyway, they was going to have complete control over the commercial aspects of the club. However, that's no longer the case, and the Glazer family have ceded control over the commercial assets of Manchester United as far as it goes, where if INEOS want to appoint their own CEO like they have done in Omar Barada, the CEO role is flexible based upon the business side of the football club, but also the football and sporting operation. So it's a flexible role in between both. So effectively, what you have now is you have a panel above Manchester United's board of Joel Glazer, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and Sir Dave Brailsford, who are leading the sporting committee of Manchester United. And effectively, when it comes to final say on players and transfers or incomings and outgoings, Joel Glazer won't be a major influence in terms of he has the final say. He's a part of the ownership group. And in terms of the three-man panel that's above the board will decide on player transfers. If they believe that the right target's out there to go for, they'll take it to that three-man panel of Joel Glazer, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and Sir Dave Brailsford. And from there, in terms of the ownership group, from there, the three of them will decide amongst them if they believe that it's the right thing and the right player to go for or the right appointment. In the exact same way that if Manchester United lose, for example, let's say the Adidas deal falls apart tomorrow, all three of them would have to agree upon when the board vote on it, if they want to go with a new shirt sponsor, whether that's Nike or whoever, if they propose it to the hierarchy, it will then be them three that have to green ticket before Manchester United sign any agreement with a new sponsorship. So effectively, Joel Glazer isn't the final decision maker in that case. So Jim Ratcliffe is on par with him in terms of decision making. And the reason because of this is Joel Glazer and the Glazer family as a whole, they understand that they've run Manchester United terribly based upon the decisions that they've made both financially and sporting wise. But they believe that INEOS bring massive value in terms of their expertise within sport. They've been successful in terms of progression within sport, not necessarily winning anything of merit in football, but they've been very successful in other ventures, in cycling, in Formula One, for example. They've been very successful with their other investments in sport. But these guys control two other football clubs that, in case of, say, for example, Nice, for example, right now, have been doing quite well this season in comparison to what they have been before Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually took over. So, based upon what the Glazer family have looked at, they believe it's more of a help to them that they have someone like Sir Jim Ratcliffe come in, and they will give him an influence and give him the power that he needs to make wholesale changes and decision making to make Manchester United better, because it works better for everybody. If Manchester United is successful on the pitch, the financial figures on the balance sheet will follow. And that's ultimately what the Glazer family have their eye on, more so than the football operations. Whereas from what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's personality and what his character has stated, is he's a Manchester United fan. So he wants to return the club to its former glory. So it's almost like you have two people who are complete polar opposites and their aims of the football club, but they have an agreement in terms of what they want to do going forward, which is just for the club to be successful. But they each have their own opinions as to well, sorry, not opinions, their own motives towards why they want Manchester United to be successful.
No, makes sense. Thank you very much, Tom. I'll just see if there's any question before we move on. I think there's another one from RSV. It says, also, will they ever fix this wage structure? Funny enough, I've seen a tweet about that recently, so which is an interesting reading about and reason as to why I think the likes of Leicester and Forest were getting fines and point reductions recently. Listen, some of these players don't deserve to be on the wages that they're on, which results in them down towards the management being lazy. So essentially, to summarize, are INEOS thinking of? Do you know if INEOS are thinking of changing the wage structure at Manchester United going forward, or are they going to maintain the current one? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, in terms of how INEOS are viewing the future, anyway, they don't want to spend heavily in the transfer market on superstar players. The days of Manchester United targeting, maybe the top 10 players within world football, under INEOS, it will change. If one of those 10 top players will make a major impact of Manchester United and it's under a attainable price tag, it will be something that INEOS will pursue because they are the best players in the world. However, if it's not for good value to take Manchester United forward, or they believe that the value that it would cost to buy one of those superstar players can be better used elsewhere to maybe buy 4 or 5 different players, they'll use that money elsewhere. Because the way that INEOS are looking at it is they need to right the wrongs of the past. And one in particular that Manchester United, that INEOS have looked at, was the way that they negotiated to actually get Casemiro to come to Manchester United. And the wordings in and around INEOS have been, if they was in control under that summer window for Manchester United, and the board put up, like I said before about the new committee that's in place now above the board, if they would have put the name forward of Casemiro with the age profile that he's at and the money that they would have had to pay Real Madrid and the wage package that they'd actually negotiated with him, INEOS would have vetoed it and they wouldn't have signed Casemiro. That's the way that INEOS are looking at it in terms of how they want to structure the club. They understand that the contracts that are in place right now with players, for example, with Marcus Rashford, who's over the £300,000 threshold, and Casemiro, Varane's not that far away from it. They understand with some of these players, those contracts are still active right now. So they can't do anything about them right now. But if they get to the summer window, that might be the opportunity where they will look at it to take maybe some of the players out of the squad that they don't necessarily think are going to be the long-term breaded future of United. The way that INEOS are looking at it, they want a young, youthful team at Manchester United. That's the way that they want to recruit. So if we're looking at it based upon the structure of the players that they have at the top of the wage bill, players like Casemiro and Varane, I would personally, and the way that INEOS have, it's coming out of INEOS anyway, that they want to recruit players. I'd be very shocked if they are still here within the next 2 years based upon the money that they're on, but also the age at the time of football that they are at right now. So in terms of cutting the wage bill down, I think it's a massive push for INEOS that they want to do and they want to influence. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to be given the time that they need to influence that. You can't influence a wage bill in one transfer window. But a person like Omar Barada wouldn't jump from Manchester City to Manchester United for no reason. And he's a key negotiator in a lot of Manchester City's business. A lot of their sponsorship deals he had an eye over. He had a lot of eyes over player contract negotiations, renewals of contracts, signing of players. So in terms of the complexity of negotiating transfers or, fixing a wage structure, he's an ideal candidate that you want to bring in. But the way that INEOS are looking at it is they believe that if they bring in the right people in the right operations and put them in the right roles within the football club, they'll trust in those people to do their job fully. So they won't be necessarily a hands-on ownership, but they will finance and fund what they believe is the best in class and the people that they will trust to run Manchester United and get them back to the top. So they will look at fixing the wage structure, but they understand and they appreciate Manchester United fans' frustrations, but they will ask for some time so that they can over time show that things will be different. So in terms of paying maybe 70, 80 million pounds for a player, I'd be shocked if Manchester United break that threshold unless it's a player that they desperately want or that they believe will massively influence Manchester United going forward. If it doesn't make good business practice, they won't do it. It's as simple as that.
Mute, sorry. Fair enough, and hopefully that answers your question, RSV. And one last question before we move on. I think as it comes to the INEOS section, Rob says, quick question. If in May, do you guys think INEOS could replace Erik in the summer, especially if we don't qualify for the Champions League? And I think that is a question as we maybe move on to the next topic is, do you see, if obviously Erik doesn't get Champions League football, we're obviously hearing I say many reports, not I haven't really heard anything from Brits or David Ornstein, but you're getting hearing the rumor mill of the likes of Southgate, and there's a short list. Today I even saw Nagelsmann from Chris Roger, etc. Is there a real possibility that based on what we're seeing, that Erik ten Hag will be replaced in the summer?
If I'm looking at it from what INEOS's track record is in football, I would be very shocked if Erik ten Hag is still here in the summer. If we talk about INEOS of the past and what they've actually done in their track record, They went to Nice Football Club. When they bought Nice, I've told this story before many a time, they had, I think it was roughly about 80 senior employees within their football structure when they bought it. When INEOS bought Nice, they did the same audit review that Sir Dave Brailsford's doing internally at Manchester United. He did the same thing with Nice Football Club. A complete financial audit and overhaul of the football operations and structures. And they cut the staff by half. They halved the staff in totality. 80 members stayed at the football club. 40 of them were laid off, and they brought in 40 new people. Not one person at Nice Football Club survived. And they led that structure going on forward, and they've made changes along the way as well. They've made mistakes with Nice, and they understand that. But they've morbited Nice and put them on a catapult so that they have a better future in the long term, albeit in the short term, they had to learn a bit and get to grips with the football club and how to actually run a football club, especially within the competitiveness that Ligue 1 is, where you have teams like Nice, Marseille, who have a decent enough structure and a decent enough wage package, but then you have PSG, who have every single superstar player in the front line. The whole front line's worth $500 million. Nice Football Club's not even worth 200 million when INEOS bought it. But in terms of INEOS replacing Erik ten Hag in the summer, it's a discussion that INEOS are having internally, based upon that they don't necessarily think the way that United have been playing this season, even when they weren't in control and they hadn't actually bought United, when they were watching it with a cast iron eye over it, they didn't look at Manchester United and think that this is a successful formula. It's not working. Something's broken. Something's not right, either on the training ground or in the coaching staff, in the hierarchy, and they wanted to work out what that was. Now, based upon the way that they've gone about it in terms of building a new structure, the only thing that I think holds Erik ten Hag a little bit of weight is if he scrapes into fifth place, and at the moment, as we speak now, there's a 74% probability chance that fifth place in the Premier League will be good enough to gain a Champions League spot. As we speak right now, that percentage will drop based upon if City or Arsenal drop out of the Champions League, or go as far as in Europe anyway. But it's based upon other teams' probability scales. If they get into the Champions League, I think they'd be more inclined to give Erik ten Hag a chance under their football structure, and he have no control. He literally just coaches the football team, and then see where it goes for the start of that season. But if he doesn't get Champions League football, I'd be very surprised if he is by the end of that tenure. Based upon Manchester United are reliant right now financially upon making the Champions League, based upon that they are in debt, they are struggling financially, as much as the book sheets and balance sheet want to say, Manchester United will have a troublesome summer window. Even with INEOS coming in the door right now, they can't just blow a basket and spend £400 or £500 million. It can't happen. They can't do it financially within the regulations at the moment in time. But if they were to get rid of Erik ten Hag, the sort of names that are being, bashed out there and stuff regarding Gareth Southgate, and listen, people associating the people that INEOS are bringing in, and who have worked with previous managers. You bring in Dan Ashworth as director of football, you're going to get linked to people like Gareth Southgate. You're going to get linked to people like Graham Potter. You're going to get linked to all of these kind of managers. It's the exact same thing when you brought in Omar Barada. You're hearing internally within Manchester City for many a time that when Pep Guardiola leaves, they had a shortlist a couple of years ago. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. 3 of the managers on the shortlist, one of them was Erik ten Hag, and the other was Luis Enrique. And then it's only recently that Roberto De Zerbi has been put on their priority list for when Pep Guardiola leaves, if he's still available. So, listen, all these different names that are getting linked to Manchester United and everything, I think if he gets the Champions League football, I think they'd be more inclined to give him a go and give him a chance. Because I think that internally within INEOS, look, they understand that they've had injuries. They understand the circumstances around the playing squad. It's been a barbaric season, but next season will be a season that's fresh, and it's their season. It's the INEOS season, effectively. That's what they will look at it as. So it will either be he might Champions League football, and then they might give him the chance and the opportunity. If he doesn't, I'd be very surprised if they keep him, personally, anyway. But if it goes off of what we've seen in the past, anyway, with how Nice was run when INEOS took over it, they completely wiped out the whole football department. The coach, sporting director, CEO, everybody was gone straight away, without a blemish. And the first summer window, they started fresh. So, with the way that they've run the structure right now and they've removed all the people behind the scenes, the only person that's really the last man standing is Erik ten Hag. And Erik ten Hag wasn't INEOS's appointment for manager, it was the Glazer family's appointment.
Exactly.
So that's the way that they will look at it, and the Glazer family don't run the football operations anymore. So, but in terms of a relationship between INEOS and Erik ten Hag, they're very transparent. They're very transparent in terms of day-to-day and wanting to know what's actually going on internally at the training ground and all the different circumstances. Because INEOS right now, they don't have any of their people in at the football club. Omar Barada can't work at Carrington until the summer. Ashworth's on gardening leave. Wilcox isn't there. You've got Sir Dave internally in the building and Jean-Claude Blanc, who are doing a liaison job with Erik ten Hag at this moment in time. That's just how they're having to run it. But when they get, I guess, more ears in the training ground, then they'll be able to see really firsthand if Erik ten Hag is up to scratch or not. But as far as the assessment goes right now, they've been disappointed in terms of where Manchester United are currently right now.
Fair enough, Tom. Thank you very much and thank you for providing that context. I hope to answer your question, Rob. RSV is my goals. Again, for those watching, remember to like the video and subscribe if you're new. Shout out to everyone who's still watching the chat on all platforms. Really, really appreciate it. So thanks for giving us that insight, Tom. Really, really appreciate it. So yeah, it's going to be an. I mean, I that's one of the reasons why I've kind of been fairly relaxed, because at the end of the day, the way I see it is there's no point in qualifying for the Champions League if we're just going to get embarrassed. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that, I almost see this situation with Chelsea, with both Bowley, where, okay, there were talks about how he would come and he would support Tuchel, blah, blah, blah. And then within a few months, they sacked him. And you can make an argument that maybe they should have let Tuchel go. I mean, I think it was difficult because Tuchel had, had Tuchel just won the Champions League that season?
The previous year he won it towards the end anyway, but
yeah, exactly. So it's like, can you really? It looks kind of bad if you're going to get a guy who's literally won the Champions League with the club recently. But it's clear that I think had he not done that, the INEOS, sorry, not INEOS, the Bowley, and Bali, etc., probably would have been like, nah, you're not our guy. Let's get rid. Let's change. Let's do something different. You know what I mean? And obviously they did in a few months, and they bought Potter. He was their man. Obviously, it didn't work out, and they got Poch. So I just have this feeling, so that as you sort of said, INEOS seem to be these guys that just want to come in and just do their own thing. And I get the vibe, and it's almost similar to like Tuchel and Bayern now, where it just feels like the players know that Ten Hag is not going to be a long term. Ten Hag probably knows that. Um, or gets that vibe, and that's just where we are, which is why I actually have very little expectation that United are going to get Champions League football next season, because much like what's his name, the previous caretaker Ragnick was, it's that Erik Ten Hag I suspect feels almost like a caretaker manager in a way, so which is not ideal, especially if you want to motivate players. So I guess one last question, I think, on this INEOS sort of before we just kind of move on to just general reaction to Brentford and all the other sort of stuff. And like I said, big up everyone with the questions. I think what did I have here? Ask, said, young youthful team does sound a bit worrying. We can't be going on shows to under touch. I mean, youth is fine. The problem with the Bowley route was that it's just completely uncoordinated. There's not really any real plan, really. That's the problem, I think. The other teams in league that can do it, they have a mixture of youth and experience. Like Villa, for example. But it's just the way that you handle it. I think that's the problem. And then big up, just going through. Big up, Roger. Get rid of players first. Well, that's going to be difficult, Gene, I think, because a lot of these players are on quite a lot of high wages. That's the biggest issue. And then Ross Valens goes to Tom. I do agree with Tom and Enzo, but who do you bring in to play second hunk? Who do you guys think will take them to win trophies again? I mean, that's the age-old question. If I'm honest, I don't really have an answer. I mean, right now, in terms of availability for me, my personal first choice would be Nagelsmann over the Sporting guy, because I think that's still a risk. So Nagelsmann would be, my guy. He was always actually my first choice, even before Erik Ten Hag, just because of how he's able to use young players, his experience. I love the type of football that he plays as well. I think is much more attractive. I'm a very, even when Ragnick was here, when he tried to implement the Gegenpress thing, for the first 5 games when we were using it, I was like, whoa, this is good. We're all pressing, we're pushing, and I could see what he's trying to do. This was great. And then the players decided not to do it anymore, which was fairly frustrating. But that would be my first choice. But I would suspect that INEOS want to go for their guy, and it sounds like they probably want to go for a British guy. So I won't be surprised if you hear the Southgates,
not necessarily, Jay, in terms of the British appeal. Okay. The way that INEOS are looking at it is they want to set the style that Manchester United play.
Mm-hmm.
You have football clubs, big football clubs within Europe. They always have some of them have a set style and a set way of playing. For example, you have Barcelona. If you ever ask people, what's the way that Barcelona have always been known to play? Everybody will always say tiki-taka, because that's the way that they've been styled as a club. That's brought them success. That's brought them glory. You can ask the same thing for, Ajax, for example. They'll say the Johan Cruyff model of football. That's what they know. That's their DNA. He's their icon that led them and gave them the football that they breathe and play. And if a manager doesn't ever play that way, it doesn't bring them success in their eyes. That's the way that they look at it. Every club has that model of way of playing. INEOS, with what they want to do with Manchester United, they want to set the style. They want to set the tone. They want to set the way that United play. So, in terms of, before they even, if let's say they do want to replace Erik Ten Hag in the end, they will decide what way they want to play as a football club before they even recruit a manager. So, if they want to make Manchester United a tiki-taka football club, they'll decide upon that. If they want Manchester United to be a high-pressing, Gegenpressing team, they'll go for managers who fit that profile. If they want Manchester United to be a low-block defensive team, they go for managers who fit that style and profile. So effectively, they've set the style as a club. They will bring in a coach of whatever style of play fits that model that they want to play. So let's say if they want to go down the Gegenpressing route that you just said, G, Nagelsmann would be one of those coaches that they would look at. they will look at coaches who play that exact way of football. Nagelsmann, who plays that way. Ragnick would be that sort of manager with that style and that background. They will look for managers who fit that profile. They will bring them in. They will recruit the players for them, for the manager or the coach, as they want to know, code it anyway. They want somebody to come in and coach the squad. They want to do recruitment with their director of football, their CEO, their technical director. The ownership structure that they've put in place will recruit the players. The manager or the coach, in this case, will coach the players Monday to Friday and work training, drills, tactics. That's it. They will be informed of transfer plans going forward. They will say, I need X, Y, Z position. I want this quality. I want a centre, for example, I want a centre half. I want them to be over 6'3", mobile, and I don't know. I want them to be able to play out from the back. They will go and get players who fit that profile, and then they'll decide it amongst them in terms of the recruitment. That's how it will work. It won't be where the manager has full free reign over the transfer market. So, INEOS as a club, they want to set the style before they step foot on going for a manager. And then if they bring in Julian Nagelsmann, and let's say he's having the same problems that Erik ten Hag's having right now, and he can't get results, he can't get the team functioning or playing, then INEOS will replace him with a manager who plays the exact same style. But the players that will have been brought in to play under Julian Nagelsmann will be able to understand and grab to that new manager who plays the exact same way, but just might have different ideas of playing that way, or might be able to get something better out of the players. It will be a smooth transition. Whereas right now, you could argue that Manchester United have 3, 4 maybe different style of players who fit different systems. For example, Scott McTominay, he would not fit in a tiki-taka system. He would be brilliant in a low block team, high energy, whatever you need to be, low block, sitting. That would be a solid player. Same for players like Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire would not suit a high pressing style. Sit on the halfway line, it just wouldn't suit him because he doesn't have the mobility to play that way. So, in terms of INEOS, they want to set the style before they even target managers. So, like, I understand what you were saying in terms of British appeal managers, G, but they're not basing it off of nationality, characteristics, or what you've even won. They're basing it off of the way that you play football and the character and what you actually bring as your style. And as far as I'm aware, anyway, with what INEOS want, they want a manager who, first and foremost, is going to be a leader on the training pitch, but is also going to command the respect of the players that are already there, but he will also influence younger players. That's the ambition of INEOS. They know United's DNA has always been with young players, so they want somebody who can work robustly with young players. And Julian Nagelsmann, as you said, would fit that profile, but it depends on the style that they want to go forward with. And then from there, that's when they will recruit managers. Which, if we're being honest, I think really that's a better solution going forward than you just pick. For example, you go from David Moyes, who plays a low block system of football, to then Louis van Gaal, who wants maybe controlling games. He wants to have possession. It's completely different. And then you go from Van Gaal to Jose Mourinho. You go from Jose Mourinho to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, counter-attacking. You go from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to now Erik ten Hag, who supposedly wants to play transitional football. It's a complete mishmash of managers, styles, and recruitment players. For which now you have a group of players who know and are better playing different ways instead of being all compatible playing one way. That's the problem that they have right now. But if they set the style in place, it will be set in place that if they're not getting the results, the manager's not good enough because the players know how to play a certain way. That's why you've been brought in. And you're either good enough or you're not good enough. And there's a final point anyway with what I know with Omar Barada at Manchester City. In terms of his role, Manchester City define plays. They give you 18 months to 2 years to prove yourself in that team. And if you're not good enough, you go out the door. And Omar Barada, as far as I'm aware anyway, influences players. He says you have 2 years to impress us. Performance, statistics, and analytically. And if you don't progress and you don't develop as a player, you're out the back door. It's as simple as that. And many Manchester City players who not necessarily have fit any of those three profiles that I just said, they get rid of them. Cancelo, they didn't like the guy's attitude. They didn't like his influence within training. They got rid of the guy. Angelino was a talented young Spanish left back at the time.
True.
Didn't do it. He didn't do anything in that City system for 18 months. They got rid of the guy.
Yeah.
Manchester City, they work in modules and cogs. So if players aren't good enough, within 2 years they'll be gone. That's the thought process of INEOS. They want to keep it fresh. They want to keep it new, but they want to keep it progressive and develop a team. Not necessarily buy success instantly and buy a bunch of superstars. They understand that it's going to take a development process. You go through pain in the short term to gain success in the long term. That's how they want it. But whether they see that with Erik ten Hag or not, we're going to have to wait and see.
Thank you for that, Tom, man. Really appreciate it. So, like, and big up everyone in the chat for watching, man. Make sure you hit the video like and subscribe if you're new. So, like I said, I really appreciate your insight into everything Manchester United. And I'm sure we'll be following this, especially as we get closer to the summer transfer window. As I'm sure INEOS are going to have a lot of big plans for Manchester United going forward. Right, let's quickly just sort of move on, just briefly, as we said, we touched this to just a brief discussion, because obviously the game was on, was it Saturday, I think? Yeah, Saturday, 8 o'clock. It was that for a go. United obviously won, Brentford won. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing, in part because I think it's probably the worst I've seen Manchester United, and maybe that's because we came from the international break. Away, I always have issues with away games just after the international break. I'm always worried, and then obviously think about injuries and stuff like that as well. So, but the performance was awful. Brentford should have won that by 4-0. You can make an argument that Onana was probably the man of the match of his saves. Mason Mount kind of comes out of nowhere, scores what you think is the winning goal, and then a few minutes later we concede, which is probably the least that Brentford deserved, to be honest. And you could make a case that effectively it puts top four pretty much out of reach. I mean, I know Spurs drew today, and I know Villa, I think, play Manchester City tomorrow, so at home, so you'd expect Manchester City to either beat Villa or draw. Probably, likely they will win, because they'll probably know that if they drop points against Villa, with Arsenal and Liverpool playing, I think, Sheffield United and Luton respectively, City can't afford to drop points against Villa at the Etihad. So you'd expect that they should win. They might not, but at the very least, you'd expect them to either a minimum draw or win the game. Regardless, it puts a lot of pressure on Manchester United to beat Chelsea. But with the way that we performed, and obviously we're hearing about Lisandro Martinez been injured. We've had in that game Varane and Lindelof were injured. So really, centre back wise, defender wise, the only fit defenders, from my understanding, are Dalot, Wan-Bissaka. I think Maguire's back and okay. And then the youth academy guy, Wibiala, something like that. That's his name, pronunciation. And that's all. I don't think there's anyone else, because I don't think Evans is available either. So we have 4 fit defenders, and that's about it, unless you're going to now throw in Amrabat as a makeshift left back, which is probably not a good idea, or you play even McTominay as centre back. I don't know. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the game, Tom, and then going forward for Manchester United against Chelsea. Can Manchester United close this gap and get top 5, or do you just think a combination of injuries as well as the way that United are playing that there's not really any real chance?
I mean, if we're basing it off of the way that Man United play, they're not a joy to watch. They're not an excitement. They bleed your eyes. Like, it's just the fallout of just inconsistency. Like, you see what they did against Liverpool, where you had a group of 11 players that, look, they didn't necessarily play a brilliant style. That there wasn't triangles, there wasn't brilliant passages of play or anything. It was it was almost a basketball match, end to end. But the players grabbed to the game based upon what the game meant to the fans and the football club. It was a derby. But you take what you saw against Liverpool and then you fast forward 2 weeks to what you go and do at Brentford, and you think, you've just gone to Brentford and stumped the place out. Like, Brentford, as much as they've done brilliantly under the constraints that they have as a football club, they had 31 shots at Manchester United's goal. Yeah, I understand it's a competitive league and you have these sort of teams and it's difficult in some games, but no team should ever have 31 shots against you. And arguably, they didn't look like they was going to score at all. It's unheard of. And I even spoke to a couple of Brentford fans that I'm good friends with anyway, and they said what they said to me was that they actually thought they played better on Saturday than they did when they actually beat us 4-0 last season. That's how they considered the way that they played this game. They felt like the way that they played, if they would have took their opportunities, it would have been a completely different story. And in terms of the way that they set up last season, I've noticed a bit of a culminating theme here. When Erik ten Hag's last season, he played 3 games and he got embarrassed in 3 games: Brentford away, Liverpool away, and the Etihad away. And all 3 of those grounds that he's gone to this season away, he's just set up in a low block. Hope maybe that you get a transition or a counter attack with the attacking players, and that's it. Just stink the place out. Don't necessarily compete. Don't play expansive. Don't open the game up. It just feels lethargic. And with the quality of the players that Manchester United have, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. Like you see from what Marcus Rashford did last season, the guy didn't even want to run at people anymore. You've got energy. You've got 2, I would say, you've got 2 players who actually, do you know what, they want to show what they can do for Manchester United, even in the difficult moment where you're not playing well. And that's Alejandro Garnacho and Kobe Mino. And that's what I was saying before about young players and the influence that they have over a football team. That gives you hope as a fan, those 2 players there. Because Garnacho, listen, if you're 2-0 down, you're 3-0 down, or you're playing shite football, he runs 100 mile an hour, 90 minutes. Even in the Liverpool game, 120 minutes. The kid was shattered at the end of the game, but he still found a burst of pace to get away from the players. That's desire, that's work rate, that's effort. That's what you want from a Man United player. Kobe Mino is exactly the same. Talented, slicky on the ball, doesn't panic under pressure. Listen, he had 4 or 5 players around him. Just glided past them as if there was nothing. Fearless, but like I say, you don't have 11 players like Kobe Mino and Alejandro Garnacho in the team. That's the issue. I think the mentality has been a problem for many, many years. You've got a lot of players here who have been here with a lot of managers. They've been to European finals, they've been to FA Cup finals, semi-finals. They've been in big moments and they've bottled it. Let's face it, they've bottled more games than they've won in the big moments. And look, you can't go away to places like Brentford and think that you're going to play the way that you do and you're going to win. I can understand, and the thing that I'd respect Erik ten Hag more is if he come out and he said, look, we've had a lot of injuries. I've cut back on the intensity of training because I need to try and keep players fit from now to the end of the season. And I just want to we're going to try and persevere. It's not a performance business from now to the end of the season. It's a results business. Because he said that he can't get the performance out without having certain players back due to injury. Fine, that's fine. Just hold your hands up and say that and accept it. But I think the guy's been very naive. I think he's been stubborn. And I don't necessarily think he's not coming up with any solutions other than just point out the obvious, which Man United have 55 injuries this season. But funnily enough, anyway, for people that want to know, if you want to talk about injuries, Man United, there's 3 teams this season that have had worse injury problems than Man United. And they've similarly had a terrible season. Brentford, who you just played at the weekend, have had more injuries than Man United all season. Brighton, who play brilliant, slicky football under Roberto De Zerbi, even with injuries, I might add, but they get results in games. They still play good football. So, and they still stick to the same style. That's down to coaching. Spurs have had even more injuries than Manchester United have had this season. I remember at the start of the season, they lost all four of they lost all fullbacks, first team fullbacks, and two centre halves. They lost two midfielders. They still played the exact same way. They come to Man United with they come to Old Trafford with a midfield of Skip, Højbjerg, and what was the other guy's name? Bentancur. They played Man United around the park. But look, I look at, like I say, the way that Brentford have played in the game and everything. I thought they were massively competitive. I thought they deserved to win the game massively. And you know something? When the equaliser went in, I just had a little chuckle to myself and I thought, you didn't deserve to win the game. You stink the place out in the way that you did, and you score, fair enough, a decent goal at the end, a decent bit of passage of play, but that was it. It was a moment. Man United, yeah, we've had many moments in football, but performance and football, it's not necessarily just a results business. Years ago it was, yeah. It's an entertainment business. People want to be entertained. They want to see good football, what they're watching. And the fact is that you have Man United, not necessarily Man United fan channels, but you have content creators or you have football influencers who want to watch rival football clubs in and around us just because they entertain them better than their own football club does. What does that say about Manchester United? It's a harsh reality check in the face of it. But like I say, going forward with Chelsea and everything, listen, they'll probably turn up against Chelsea. It's a big game. Like earlier in the season when they needed to play Chelsea.
As Rob says, we've got two big games. We're placing Chelsea and Liverpool in the same week. Liverpool at home and Chelsea. And quite frankly, we need to be if we're going to have any chance of getting top five, we need to, because Villa and Spurs also have hard run-ins. Villa have to play. Villa and Spurs both have to play. I think they both have to play Chelsea. They both have to play Arsenal and Liverpool.
I think they've got to play each other once as well. Could be right.
They've already played each other. I think that was when Spurs beat Villa. But when I look at, let me just have a quick look at the schedules. Let's look at just table. So if I look at Spurs' schedule. Obviously, they just dropped points against West Ham, which I kind of expected. On Sunday, played Forest. You expect them to win, although Forest a good win against Fulham today, and obviously they're battling relegation, so it might not be easy, but we'll see. Yeah. Then they have Newcastle away, who drew. You never know with Newcastle away; it can go even more. Then they've got some Spurs. Basically, they've got Newcastle away, they have City at home, they have Arsenal at home, and then they have Liverpool away at Anfield, and then they finish off with Burnley at home and Sheffield United at home, which again, in theory, easy games, but then again, these are two teams that are battling relegation as well, so it might not be as easy as you think, especially because it's getting heated up at the, and then I think they have Newcastle. They have Newcastle again. What's this? Maybe it was one of the games that got rescheduled or something. So I think they play Newcastle again. For some reason, I think that must be because it got recently rescheduled or whatever. So you look at those, you look at Newcastle away, you look at Spurs, you look at City, so you've got 4 games where convincingly Spurs could potentially drop points in those 4 games, potentially 9 points. And so if you're a United fan, it's the same thing with Villa. I think Villa, just going back against the table, Villa, I think, have it even worse. I think Villa, yes, they play Villa right now. They're playing City, obviously, this week. They've got Brentford at home. Then Arsenal away next week. Obviously, they're still in the Europa Conference League, so that will do something. Then they play Chelsea. So they play Bournemouth. Then they play Chelsea. Then they play Brighton away, which is always tough. Then they play Liverpool away, and I think Crystal Palace as well. So again, I think they must have already played. Oh no, they played Chelsea at home in Inter as well. So they have tough games. And I think the question is just that, I guess what I'll say is that if United can beat Chelsea and Liverpool this week, and you hope that Liverpool can actually go and beat Spurs and Villa, then maybe United have a chance of getting top 5. But what are the odds that United actually go away to Stamford Bridge and win and beat Liverpool at Old Trafford? It's especially with the injuries and the way that the mood is. Like, you're relying on a makeshift back four, a keeper who is getting better but is still in his first season, a midfield that is incredibly dodgy, and an attack that is inconsistent. So I don't know what do you think about that, Tom? Like, what chance do United really have?
I think he's very slim. And like I was saying before, when we were just talking about INEOS in terms of getting in the Champions League places, there's a 74% probability chance that 5th place will be good enough. But you're having to rely upon the success of Arsenal, Liverpool, and Manchester City within Europe to guarantee that you'll have that place and that opportunity. The fact that you have to rely upon rival football clubs to do you a favour, put you in a 5th place position, I think's very disgruntled. And to be honest with you, anyway, as far as it goes with, top 5 and the top 4 anyway, Manchester United, based upon the way that they played this season, shouldn't be anywhere near a top 4 conversation.
Indeed.
They really shouldn't. They should be mid-table, mediocre. They've been average, very average. Many teams this year, they've played far better football. Spurs deserve top 4, and I'll say that even when we played them twice and everything. And listen, as much as people want to get up on Andrew's goat and everything, they play brilliant football. It's a fix for some Manchester United fans. They'd rather watch Spurs play than Man United. Like tonight, they'll watch Spurs play and they'll see the patterns, the triangles, bit of excitement, counter-attacking, fast-flowing football. Gets them giddy, even though it's not their own football team. But Spurs deserve top 4. Listen, Arsenal, Liverpool and City, it's always going to be nailed on. I would say anyway that they were going to get top 4, just based upon the merit of what they've done and everything. But if we're even going off of it now, Manchester United, when they sit in, the position that they are to even compete for 5th, I think is laughable. But I think even teams like Villa, like I say, they've done enough to warrant being in Champions League. They've done, I would say, arguably what Newcastle did last season. They emulate the exact same sort of diagram for me for what Newcastle did. High intensity, high energy football, impose yourself on teams and get the best out of player performance. But like I say, people want to sit there and just say, oh, if Man United get the results and everything, who cares? Well, I'd like to see a team. You don't see a team in the modern day era that doesn't play good football winning the big trophies anymore. Sorry, you just don't see it anymore. You don't see a Jose Mourinho come to Man United or an Antonio Conte go to Chelsea. You're not going to have that season where the first season that they go to a football club, they're going to win the Premier League. It's not going to happen anymore. Not playing that way anyway. Football's evolving and it's changing. And like I said before, it's an entertainment business. And if you're not going to entertain football fans, you're going to be very slim. So in terms of qualifying for the Champions League, I think performances are gash and far and wide between actually getting anything positive. And I just feel like I've said it before anyway myself. I've always said that for a couple of weeks and nearly a month now anyway. I just see from now to the end of the season, I see Spurs and Villa winning more games than Man United. And ultimately, I think that categorises why Manchester United won't be in the Champions League. And if Villa and Spurs get in the Champions League, I think City, Liverpool and Arsenal, it's almost nailed on that they will get into the Champions League.
There's not
even an argument to case for it. So Man United will have to play for 5th place with either Spurs or Villa. I would argue it would probably be more than Villa, but Villa play better football than us. And Villa, wherever they go, home or away, they can rip apart teams. They can break teams down. Manchester United can't do that. And that's the worrying concern for me. And that's why I think Man United, I don't think they will get top 4. I think I think best case scenario for Man United will probably be get 6th. If you're lucky. But you have teams behind you that can easily creep upon you if you lose a couple of games. But Man United look like they can lose games, and they are to be got at. So, like I say, we'll just have to wait and see. But for me, I don't have much confidence with it. No.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Let's just begin to end up with, I guess, a final topic, and that's just the PL title race, which once again Manchester United are not in, which is thoroughly depressing. But obviously, the weekend, I mean, I know everyone's saying it was a bore fest. It was probably even more boring than the United Brentford game. Although which is bad, but at least it was entertaining. But City Arsenal was just boring. It was just boring. But at the end of the day, Arsenal get a point, and City are 3 points with Liverpool top, winning their game. And we are essentially in a 3-horse title race. That's it. It's probably, to be honest, the Premier League is probably the only league in the top 5 leagues where it's still undecided pretty much. Let's be keeping a stat. PSG have obviously won the Ligue 1. That's enough said. Bayer Leverkusen have effectively won the Bundesliga. They're so far ahead now that it's done. La Liga, Real Madrid look like. I mean, the whole Girona thing I think is finished. Real Madrid affect. Although let me just quickly check La Liga. Actually, I think Real Madrid are, but last time I checked, Barcelona were. Let me just check La Liga 1 second. The table. Yeah, Real Madrid are. With this level points, they're at least 8. Again, they're 8 points ahead of Barcelona. Barcelona's 67. Girona have 65, so 10 points clear of Girona, and they're 8 points clear of Barcelona. So again, it's effectively done. And obviously Syria, it's Inter Milan effectively have got it done. So really, it's only in the Premier League where you still see a 3-horse race. We're thinking it's still anyone's game, really. Tom, and even in the chat, obviously, let me know what you guys think in the chat. Who do you actually think, in no particular order, are actually the genuine favourites to win the Premier League this season, Tom?
If I'm basing it off of how they've rode the luck, really, you'd have to say Liverpool.
Yeah.
Because they're always finding a way to win. The problem with Liverpool that I see the thing that I see with Liverpool this season is when they're struggling in a game, there's always just a moment that they just have that one instinct, that one player who's always Johnny on the spot and gets the goal that they need to get them over the line. A couple of weeks ago at Nottingham Forest, they had it with Darwin Núñez, I think it was. They had it with Brighton, where they got back into the game and everything. They weren't necessarily playing brilliant in the beginning. But, like I say, Liverpool, even just under Jurgen Klopp's whole tenure anyway, they always just find a way to win. That's the one thing I can always say with Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool team is, listen, you can be 2-0 down against Liverpool. You can be 2-0 up against Liverpool at half-time. I still would back Liverpool in the second half to go and turn it round. Because they have that mentality in them that they can't be defeated. And I would say anyway that they are the closest team that's ever come to beating that invincible record of Arsenal. And that was only derailed by what happened a couple of seasons ago with Watford in that one game. That was it. And I think if they would, me personally, I think if they would have got over that Watford game, I think they would have done it. I think the balance of fixtures that they had, I think it would have been successful for them. But like I said, I don't. I could be wrong in thinking that. I don't necessarily think I've got any. Obviously, they've got to play Man United, but I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they've got to play City again. They haven't got to play City again now.
Who?
Liverpool. I think they've got to play Arsenal.
Yeah, they've played all their rivals. So Liverpool, Arsenal, they've all played each other now. So.
Oh, are they? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just coming to. It's just Liverpool and Arsenal have to basically. I think you can make a case City have the easier run. Well, I say easier run. They have to go away to Spurs, which is always a bit a bogey situation. Obviously, they have Villa tomorrow. But outside of those, they've not faced anyone. Whereas obviously, Arsenal and Liverpool both have to come to Old Trafford. They both have to play Spurs. or I'll bet Spurs have to come to Anfield, and I think Arsenal have to go away. And obviously, they both have to play. I think they both have to play Chelsea as well. And last time
Okay.
I think last time they both played, it was a draw. Yeah, because
Mm.
Arsenal drew with Chelsea, and I think Liverpool drew with Chelsea as well. So I'm thinking of those games. I'm thinking, okay, yes, they might win, but they could just easily draw. And if I'm looking at those games, this is why I think the City might win it, because yes, they might lose, they might draw, lose points against Spurs. I do think City will probably beat Villa at the Etihad tomorrow. But outside of that, they'll probably win every other game. Whereas Arsenal,
Mm.
Liverpool, like, I could see them dropping points against Chelsea, even though Chelsea are 12th. Chelsea have not actually, aside from United, with the top three, they've not lost any points to City, Liverpool, Arsenal this season, and they beat Spurs. So I can see them dropping points potentially to Chelsea, and then you then have Spurs, which for both of them could go either way. Again, it could potentially see them dropping points. But so if I'm honest, I guess my prediction is that I want Arsenal to win just because I don't want Liverpool to equal the record and I don't want City to go 4 in a row. So I'm behind
Mm.
Arsenal just for that alone. It's so annoying that we can't affect it. Well, we can affect it. We can beat Liverpool. It stops them at least. Um, but you know, I guess I have a feeling that City will somehow find a way to do it. But you're right, as I think even Rob says in the chat. Hate to say it, but Liverpool might do the league. But in which order do you think is the worst case? So Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal. We hate them all. Um, which is worse?
I think Liverpool was more worse based upon the record, because I think with City, you've always, I think for the last couple of years, Man United, we've always been accustomed to it,
Mm,
because it's always been an expectation that City will be there or thereabouts.
mm,
The only thing that's ever kept, and that's the one thing that's always been the axe and grind for Man United fans, is your two biggest rivals, one that you share a city with, but you don't necessarily have to worry about any records being broken,
mm,
but you have to hear it all summer or whatever that they won the league and they live next door to you. But
mm,
then you go down the motorway and you have your real rivalry for generations that you've had with Liverpool, and they are that one step away. They are that one trophy away. And look, as much as people maybe don't want to believe in stories and fairy tales, whatever, it would be the fairy tale ending that Jurgen Klopp leaves Liverpool on par with Manchester United.
mm.
That is their be all and end all. Let's face facts. Liverpool, if they can have their pick of it, they couldn't really give a crap about the Europa League. I don't really think that makes a massive difference to Jurgen Klopp's legacy or not. What makes a difference to his legacy is if he won another Premier League, because people won't just say, "Oh, well, it was that only." How can I say? People won't define Jurgen Klopp and say, "Oh, well, you won it when there was nobody there." Like that sort of figure, because look, people make the jokes and everything. Like, I joke with Liverpool fans all the time and everything, or a couple of my friends and that. When I say, did you actually win the Premier League title? Well, of course we won it. We saw it on TV. No, but was you actually there? And did you actually see it with your own eyes? Well, no. All right. Well, it's like the moon. Did people actually land on the moon or not? Well, you weren't there, so do you fucking know? But look, people, like I say, with Liverpool and everything, like I said, I think the way that they rode the luck and everything, it's pushing more towards that way. I'll be very honest with you. I think City are for me anyway, I think City are the third horse out of this. I really do, because I don't think they've played brilliantly for most of the season, if I'm being honest with you. I've seen them play a lot better, lot better in other seasons.
True.
But the thing with Arsenal, I personally, anyway, I want Arsenal to win it, and I'll be very honest with you. I think they deserve to win it. The way that they've played, they've competed with Liverpool in the games that they've had against them. They've beat Manchester City. They've not lost against Manchester City this season,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think is a positive thing that they could argue with.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they've had with Liverpool and City in that case is, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't actually think they've lost to either of them. I could be wrong.
No. Arsenal have. I'm trying to think.
I think they've won both. I think they've won a game against each of them, and then they've drew one of them.
Yeah, I can't remember what the result was when Arsenal went to Anfield, but I know that when
I think
they
it was a draw. I think it was a
draw,
draw. I could be wrong.
yeah, and then they
But
beat Liverpool. They beat Liverpool and City at the Emirates, and they drew away. And then to both of them, City. Um, Obviously, they drew with Liverpool at Anfield and at the Emirates, and obviously they lost to Arsenal away.
yeah.
And then Liverpool, yeah, I don't think Liverpool
I don't
have.
think Arsenal have lost to. I don't think they've lost to either. I think they either
Yeah,
drew or
yeah,
they've won. But like I said, the thing with Arsenal is I think they deserve to win it based upon the way
mm,
that they've played. Listen, last season, as much as people want to make the jokes about it when they bottled it and everything like that, they deserved to win it. They did.
mm,
They played brilliant football. They did.
mm,
They beat everybody that was in front of them up until that point where they started to lose a couple of key players like Saliba, and you had injuries to Odegaard and Saka and stuff, and fitness was an issue with some of those players, leading on from what happened with the World Cup and stuff when they went away. And look, you can say it for what it is. It's not excuses, but at the end of the day, I just think the way that Arsenal have played, but also really the backlash that I think Arteta has always took is he's almost been defined as a loser in football because he bottled the top four when he had the opportunity to do it. He bottled the league last season, and then also when he's got now again he's in the same position now. We're going to have to see if he's actually going to make improvements for it. But the only thing that I think might deter Arsenal's thoughts slightly is how far they go into the Champions League. Because theoretically, if he won the Champions League, he's done what every other Arsenal manager before him couldn't do. He's already beaten the guy that he built a legacy with as a player in Arsene Wenger in a couple of seasons. He's won the Champions League. And I think that's always the defining block with Arsenal is that they haven't got that European trophy to ever emulate towards. And I think that if they got to the semi-final, and let's say the first leg of the semi-final went really well and they won the game convincingly or whatever, and they quite a cool couple of goals up on aggregate, I think they might look at that and think, we've got a chance here. And that's where I think the mindset of a lot of these teams will be elsewhere. I think with City, the mindset has always been for City, can we regain the treble? I don't believe in this quad BS and everything. I think if they could have emulated what they did last season, they would have been brilliant and they would have been happy with that.
yeah, of course.
Liverpool, they want the fairy tale end story to Jurgen Klopp. So they want that 20th title on par with Manchester United. That's their fairy tale ending. Mikel Arteta, his almost like dynasty, if you like, or legacy that he's trying to build with Arsenal is just beginning. And I think Arsenal are very similar to what Liverpool was 3 or 4 years ago, where they had that one season where they was in it with City, and then they fell at the last hurdle, and then the following season they went over the hurdle and they completely blitzed Manchester City. But Arsenal in this case are in a different scenario. But like I said, I think for me anyway, I think Arsenal have deserved to win it for me. And I think, like I said, the way that they've played, I think a lot of the flack that they've taken, when I think about a lot of the pundits, I think it's a little bit childish with some comments that some of the pundits make. Like Jamie Carragher, like, fucking hell, they've won a football match and they're in a title race. When Anfield erupts when they score a 90-minute goal, I see you jumping around like a fucking chimpanzee.
Yeah.
So it's different on the other foot if you lose if it's for one of your rivals. But at the end of the day, they can kiss the badge or kiss the crest or whatever. At the end of the day, the captain for whatever team will have both arms on the trophy. And for me, anyway, like I say, I think priorities are going to. Liverpool's priority will win the Premier League. City's priority is to win all of them that they're left in. So emulate what they did last season. They can still do that. And Arsenal's expectation, I think, if you ask a lot of Arsenal fans, they want to win the league. If you gave them the chance, I think they would have win. I think they would want to win the league. But if they get so far in the Champions League and they get to that second leg and they're up on par or whatever, I think they might look at it and think,
I think
We're one game away. We're 90 minutes away from doing something that we've never done as a club.
the main reason why I want Arsenal to win league is that it's a good example of like how, that if you actually actually have a you've got like no one AFTV are dying because they were built on, Cronky out, etc., and all those sorts of things. Is not the club selling. Now you've got a situation where Arsenal have obviously clearly got the right people in charge. They trusted in Arteta despite him not doing great for 2 seasons. They got the right players in, and they built. They've not spent like ridiculous amounts of money, and they're challenging. And so that's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's the idea. So for me, it's like it's evidence that. So this whole idea that you have to spend hundreds of pounds, you've got to get like an elite coach, all the rest of it to basically win the Premier League, is nonsense. Like because Arteta has kind of shown that you can do it. I mean, people say, "Oh yeah, he lived under Pep or something like that." Yeah, but people weren't saying that after when he was for the first 2 seasons. They're calling him Cone Boy. Even Arsenal fans are saying that. So it's evidence that sometimes with these things like that, you do actually need patience. And the idea that you can just bring in a manager and then he'll just suddenly just or stuff and they'll suddenly just get you to win. I think the only
Yeah.
difference would be between Arteta and the way that Ten Hag is that like I actually enjoyed watching even when they were not doing too great when they were in the first sec, they still played entertaining football, and it was you could still watch them despite the fact that they were getting bantered all the time. But they just
There's a belief though with those teams.
yeah,
I think that's the point. There's always a belief with those teams.
exactly.
Like with Jurgen Klopp. Listen, Jurgen Klopp, he went to the Europa League final. He went to FA Cup semi-finals, Carabao Cup semi-finals. He bottled it. He got to Champions League final. He's been to 3 Champions League finals. He's only won one of them. He's arguably been in 3 Premier League title races against Manchester City. He's won one of them. These are just the stats. And at the end of the day, he's been there 7 years. He's won every single trophy that there is to win. But you would argue that he should have won more based upon how that Liverpool team has played and the quality of players that they've had. That will always be the argument that you can throw against Jurgen Klopp. Pep Guardiola, you can't throw stones at the guy. He's done everything that he was asked to do. He said they wanted to build a dynasty. They wanted to dominate the Premier League. They've done that for 3-4 years now. They've completed all of the trophy cabinet. They've got the Champions League that they wanted, finally, and over the line. But at the end of the day, these managers have given the fans and the hierarchy above them the confidence and belief that they're taking that football club under their wing and they're going somewhere. That's what I mean with Arsenal, for example. Yeah, they play. Listen, they didn't get the. Arsenal played good football, but they just didn't get the results. That was their problem. They didn't get the results, and they weren't competing. But in the time frame that they had, they weren't competing because the squad was mishmashed with players. Listen, I can list, loads of players in the Arsenal team that aren't there now that you would have said years ago. Was like key players for them. Koscielny was their captain. Where you don't even hear the guy's name in football anymore. Monreal, for example, Hector Bellerin, Alex Iwobi. You don't hear these players anymore because they're not influenced massively in football since they've left Arsenal. But Arsenal have then recruited well in the market. They brought in a couple of decent players and everything, and then the managers got them playing a brand of football that they all buy into, but they all fit to play that way. And at the end of the day, like I was saying before about INEOS, when they want to come in and they want to set the style before they hire managers, Liverpool, when Jurgen Klopp's leaving now, they are targeting a similar styled manager who plays the exact same way that Jurgen Klopp does, or emulates it in some capacity. By going for a coach like Xabi Alonso, like they were looking at going for, he's almost a Jurgen Klopp hybrid. He's a Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola mixed mashed together. There's a couple of coaches that I would argue have those similar characteristics, that they like controlling games with the ball, but they also want to have a hybrid press going forward. But it's maybe not as aggressive as a gegenpress, but it's a hybrid. But at the end of the day, with how, say, when you compare it, say, to what Manchester United have to try and build now is, they have to look at, I think the best model that they can ever look at is how Liverpool built up. I wouldn't necessarily pay much attention to what Arsenal's done, because I think Arsenal's been. To be honest, I think Arsenal was a lot worse than how Manchester United are years and years ago, because they weren't even getting top four. They weren't having any sort of success trophy-wise. Nothing. Man United won trophies with Mourinho playing shite football. They've won trophies. They've still been in the top four, even though they've not been at the higher level. Arsenal was far, far worse than Manchester United was. But Manchester United in this moment now, they have the shackles around them that they can't spend massively in the market to improve themselves, but they need to spend wisely. That's the problem. If you don't necessarily associate the £1.25 billion debt that Manchester United are in, if you don't associate the debt that United have right now, and you said today's a fresh start, I would say within, let's say, 5 years, the net spend of Manchester United's squad should only be about £400 million. That's with bringing in players, but also player sales to regenerate your finances, so then you can spend more in the market. But like I say, I would always emulate what Liverpool did, where it's not necessarily you have the open war chest and you do what Manchester City did, where Pep Guardiola went in there, he said, I want 4 left backs, I want 2 centre halves, I want a creative midfielder, I want 2 wingers, I want this way, X, Y, and Z. What Liverpool did was they got what they needed at the key moments. When they need a player, they went and got the player that they wanted. But if they couldn't get the player that they wanted, they waited for that player to become available. My best example that I'll ever use in football anyway is what they did with Virgil van Dijk. When Jurgen Klopp went to Liverpool, they was already scouting Virgil van Dijk when he was at Celtic.
Yeah.
And when he was at Celtic, they wanted to sign him, but they weren't prepared to take the risk based upon that they had a decent-ish defence with Skirtle and Kolo Toure at the time at the back.
Oh, yeah.
And Mamadou Sakho. They had a decent back four. The problem Liverpool had was they couldn't score goals. So they emulated going for the attacking players. Hence, they brought in Salah, they brought in Mane, they brought in Firmino. They completely built the attack, and then they started building backwards every so often. And then the last 2 pieces of the puzzle that they needed was a world-class centre-half who could lead the back line, Virgil van Dijk, and then a world-renowned goalkeeper who can perform in big moments for you. That's Alisson. And they spent the money that they needed to do to get those players.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair, Tom. And I'll just wrap up this show. Thank you so much, everyone. We're just obviously going on from one house. We're going to round things up. I'll just end with this. I mean, for us Reds, we can't have Liverpool equals 20 and City falling on trot. We can't have that low. But under INEOS, I do believe Man United will back. And all I can say is, Rob, is I hope so, buddy. I hope so, buddy, man. I hope so, buddy, as well. Oh, I just seen Tom's message 2 minutes, but we're rounding up anyway. So, Lucky Singh just coming in. This is Casemiro, Mason Mount, Code Main, and Bruno in. Hold one little ball either side, present clutch as well. I hope so. I hope so, Lucky. I hope so, but our defense just isn't good, so I don't have any chance. I'm not taking any to that. I just think that we're going to struggle, but it is what it is. We live in hope. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tom, again for coming on. I know he's just head off 2 minutes ago, so but like I said, thanks everyone for watching. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter and smash the notification button. Remember, check out us. We are on TikTok now. We are on Kick now. We are on Twitch. We are on Instagram. So make sure you head over there and check out those channels as well. Have a nice day, guys. Peace out and cheers. Peace, 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 peace.